From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
Now at 5:30, a local bakery adapted to pandemic changes and is now busier than ever. What this means for you if you are looking for a job creating sweet treats. Chris?
Topping our lineup, the pandemic could impact your summer vacation for a lot of reasons. We're taking a look at why it could be tough, though, to rent a car. And a new online tool could give parents some peace of mind as kids head back to the classroom. How it's giving insight into everything from vaccinations to COVID cases. And allergy season is underway. We hear from a doctor on how this can impact your chances of catching COVID and how to tell the symptoms apart.
You might have been caught in some downpours out there today across central Indiana, but right now we are seeing some sunshine in downtown Indianapolis. Still have a few downpours out there, though, as we take our look at radar here, and you can see where some of the heaviest rain is falling. It's really focused here over the eastern third of the state. That's where we still have this slight risk that some of those storms could produce some gusty winds, but at this point it looks like wind gusts should only get to around 50 miles per hour or so. With one of those storms that's now pushing north and east of Hartford City, moving toward Portland, Indiana. Also starting to improve a little bit for you around Newcastle. Still some showers, though, coming down there around Kokomo. Here's a look at TrueCast. As we go through the next couple of hours, we quickly see this area of rain pushing to the north and east by 7 o'clock tonight. And then we'll just see some clouds out there and gradually clear those out as well. Right now, we've got temperatures in the lower to middle 60s. Still a little breezy, though. We've got those southwest winds that are gusting between about 20 and 30 miles per hour. As you head out this evening, we will see mainly dry conditions, but still some mild temperatures. We're in the 50s by 6 a.m. But Amanda, we aren't finished with those rain chances just yet. More on that in a few minutes.
Okay, we'll see you soon, Kyle. Hiring Hoosiers is our commitment to connect you with job opportunities to better your life. And a local bakery is busy creating cakes for weddings and events. WRTV's Lauren Casey shows us how they adapted to pandemic changes and how you can help them cook up a whole lot of goodies as things open back up.
We have been planning weddings this whole time. We just haven't been having a lot of weddings.
Between the buttercream, simple syrup, and fondant figures, classic cakes in caramel keeps busy.
We had a lot of weddings that rescheduled multiple times throughout last year.
For cake curator and new owner Megan Ritz, this past year in the pandemic cooked up quite a challenge.
It was terrifying.
As people postponed their nuptials, Ritz looked for ways to keep her employees creating in the kitchen.
So we really sat down and tried to figure out how we could support the community, how we could connect with people.
Taking over the business in August 2019 was a homecoming for Ritz.
I actually learned how to decorate cakes here.
And as 2020 took a turn, she kept her bakers baking. From at-home deliveries to donation drives, one week they delivered 3,000 cupcakes to Riley Hospital employees.
And it was really nice to just focus on how we could help and connect with the community instead of worrying about what that was going to mean for us.
And she overcame her fear of Facebook Lives.
Classic Cakes also captivated their customers through cake tutorials on their computer screens concocted for the at-home baker,
garnering thousands of views.
It exploded in a way I never expected.
So, I mean, it was stressful, but it was also fun trying to come up with new ideas.
Jennifer Lewis is the GM.
I help answer calls, help customers take orders. I'm also the baker right now.
She says while weddings were wiped from their weekend calendars, new cake orders filled their schedules.
We went from like 3 and 4 tier cakes to, you know, doing 10 serving cakes, like 6-inch cakes. So there was a lot more cakes. So it seemed like we were busier.
It's definitely picked up the past month compared to how it was earlier in the year.
Alexis Seibert works as a cake decorator for Classic Cakes with a unique introduction to their kitchen.
So I actually started last July.
She loves the teamwork behind the scenes and the big reveal to cake customers.
It's always nice when they come in and then it looks exactly like what they wanted and they're so happy. Then it's like, yay, we did it.
And these ladies say 2021 is already shaping up to be a big year.
Typically, we'll have people that schedule like 6 months to a year out, and I have, I think, 3 people I'm working with right now that are getting married in the next 2 weeks, and they're like, I need a cake now.
And that's why Classic Cakes is hiring Hoosiers. Working for you, Lauren Casey, WRTV.
Those cakes look incredible. To see a gallery of their cakes, get more info on those open positions, and find out about how to join their cupcake club, click on this story at hiringhoosiers.com. Chris.
Nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment.
President Biden today is calling gun violence a public health crisis and epidemic. He announced new executive action, including closing loopholes that allow people to make their own weapons, so-called ghost guns.
The icing on the cake for me was the appearance of that machine, the Ghost Gunner 3, which is about the size of a desktop laser printer. And it can produce one of these every 35 minutes. And is advertised as basically you can set up a factory in your home and nobody will know about it.
ER doctor and director of the UC Davis Violence Prevention Research Program recently wrote a commentary on ghost guns. He cites the use of them in recent political violence and other high-profile crimes like mass shootings. He says it makes sense to lower the threshold for what's considered a firearm and require specific parts of a weapon to have a serial number.
Hobbyists will say, but I want to make my own gun. Well, that's fine. Put a serial number on it. You're a hobbyist. What do you care? There is a huge market for custom building firearms.
The longer that we allow this market to continue on unfettered and unregulated, the more of these guns that we will continue to see show up.
It's hard to know how many ghost guns are out there, but the ATF recovered more than 10,000 in 2019. The same year, they traced nearly 270,000 firearms. Anti-gun violence group Brady agrees that law-abiding citizens won't be impacted by these new rules.
I don't see any of this at odds, and I think, frankly, what has changed today versus where we've been in the past is that gun owners, non-gun owners, Democrats, Republicans, they all agree that we need to do something more. And that is why we are where we are today.
Now, gun violence jumped to its highest levels in 2 decades last year, with nearly 20,000 Americans killed, according to the Gun Violence Archive. That doesn't include an additional 24,000 suicides by gun. The Biden administration also wants to collect data on gun trafficking, create model red flag legislation, which makes it harder for people in distress to access weapons, and make grants available for communities to combat gun violence on their own. Now, checking back in on our lineup, if you're thinking about getting a rental car for the summer, well, you may be paying more than usual. How you can look to save. If you're thinking about renting a car for a summer vacation, you need to start planning right now, because demand's up, but there's just not that many cars available. That's driving up prices if you can even find one. This all started because of what happened last year when people were not traveling because of the pandemic. And the CEO of AutoSlash, which is a company that helps people find good prices on rentals, tells us that car rental companies sold off hundreds of thousands of vehicles to stay in business with the big drop in demand. But the demand is back and they don't have any cars.
We did some pricing checks, and the news was sort of mixed. There were places where, like Orlando, where I saw rates of $389 a day for this weekend and into next week. But yet, if you book a week or two farther out, you can get rates of like $60 or $70 a day. Now, that's still not great. I mean, the normal rate at this time of year would be $30 or $40 a day.
Other places that AutoSlash found with high car rental prices or cars sold out right now include cities all across Florida. Then you got Charlotte, Las Vegas, New Orleans, Savannah, Tucson. They say they're already seeing increased demand and higher rates starting in the Northeast and Midwest as well. Could be the fall before things return to normal across the country.
Where we're seeing the biggest problems are the larger vehicles. So minivans, full-size SUVs, anything that basically seats more than 6 people. We're seeing prices spiking right now because those are in short supply. Those are the types of vehicles that folks want to use for a road trip.
He advises booking your rental car at least a month out. Consider checking rental car prices before you even book your plane ticket. You can choose an option that lets you make a reservation without having to give your credit card in advance, so you can back out without a fee if needed. Also, check both the airport and off-airport rental locations. The rules that typically apply with prices at these may not apply now. Another trick is if you search and there's nothing available, add days to your rental and you could start seeing availability for booking longer. The Auto/Slash CEO tells us then you can return the car early and you may be able to get money back for the additional days. Auto/Slash's service is free. You don't have to pay up front. It tracks the price of your rental for drops, and if you can take advantage of those, they also automatically apply coupon discount codes to your rental. Now, still ahead in our lineup, safely navigating the classroom can be tough as schools reopen. The new tool aimed at helping parents and teachers.
The second spring of the COVID-19 pandemic, a last chance to try and salvage some of this school year. But how to do that safely is exposing tensions between parents, teachers, and administrators across the country.
I think we're putting them in an unsafe situation. I don't think our building is ready.
We think it's a safe place to be, a safe place to work, a safe place for students.
With each state coming up with its own plan, researchers at Johns Hopkins University launched an interactive online dashboard as part of its eSchool Plus initiative.
It's intended to be something that anybody can go to as a resource.
It works like this. You go to equityschoolplus.jhu.edu and scroll down. It lays out what schools are doing in each state with a dashboard covering teacher vaccinations and a tracker that contains everything from in-person learning to specific reopening plans, as well as tracking the number of COVID-19 cases in a state.
So I'm both a mother and a teacher and an educator, so I certainly do see this from multiple sides.
Annette Anderson is a former teacher and school principal who worked on the Johns Hopkins tracker.
But I think ultimately everyone wants school to get reopened. They want kids to get back in classrooms, but people want to feel safe.
In the coming months, new information for each state could potentially get added, including whether or not schools will require teachers and staff to get the COVID-19 vaccine.
So we're already collecting that data at the state level as to whether state boards of education are mandating teachers for vaccination. To date, we don't see anybody having moved in that direction, but you are seeing murmurs of that in other industries.
And with vaccine trials now underway in children, whether students are required to get the vaccine will be another question needing an answer.
I think that's one of the things we're ready to pivot to in our vaccine tracker is looking ahead to what are the requirements at the school level going to be for vaccinating students.
Valuable information to help everyone navigate school decisions in the months to come. I'm Maya Rodriguez.
Maya, thank you. And getting accepted to an Ivy League school just got even more competitive. This week, Harvard, Columbia, and other elite schools sent out admissions decisions with record low acceptance rates. Ivy League schools got a surge of applications this year after no longer requiring ACT or SAT scores due to the pandemic, but they didn't expand on class size with that surge, resulting in the record low admissions rate. The national numbers on applications for unemployment benefits are a sign that businesses are still cutting jobs. Those jobless claims rose last week to 744,000. Labor Department says that's up by 16,000 from the week before. Now, before the pandemic, applications for unemployment were typically below 220,000 a week. You're going to have to wait until at least May to get a refund if you filed your tax return without claiming the new break on unemployment benefits. The IRS says it will be issuing refunds automatically to people who are eligible. The agency says the first refunds are expected to come in May and they'll continue into the summer. The American Rescue Plan waives federal tax on up to $10,200 of unemployment benefits per person. You may need to file an amended return if the tax breaks make you eligible for additional federal deductions, not including in your original return.
When we haven't had the rain today, it's really been a pretty nice day here across central Indiana. Now enjoying some blue sky in Indianapolis. And I think the downtown area, we are done with that rain threat. Cold front has moved its way through. And you look back in Illinois, you find temperatures in the 50s there. Happy to say, though, we are not going to be seeing that surge of cool air move in here. In fact, our temperatures will warm up a little bit tomorrow. Right now, we're sitting at 63 downtown and 66 degrees in Lafayette as we're mixing in some sunshine. Still some of those showers, some brief heavy rain that'll move through the Peru area there in Miami County and then also along I-70 just to the west of Richmond. But that should be about the end of the rain for us tonight. Tomorrow, we get into another chance for some showers, a few thunderstorms by afternoon. But look at that. Temperatures back into the middle 70s after starting off around 50 degrees or so. We will see quite a few clouds tomorrow. Here's a look at TrueCast. 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Not a whole lot going on. And then we may see a couple of these thunderstorms developing and kind of bubbling up overhead. Really, the best chance is going to be over the southeastern portion of the state. And as we get into Friday evening, things quiet down once again, but that's brief. We look ahead to our rain chances on Saturday, and you can see they're running about 60 to 70% throughout the day. Not that it's going to rain every minute of the day on Saturday, but the chance is certainly there. And you can see TrueCast as we get into the afternoon, that swath of rain that will move through. Few embedded thunderstorms right now, not looking at that severe weather threat. But there's a look at that 7-day planning forecast with highs around 60 next week.
A lot of people said they're waiting to get a COVID-19 vaccine to see if there are more reactions or any long-term issues. Science tells us that's highly unlikely.
But even some of the things that we worry about as potential complications of vaccines, they usually do turn up quite quickly. So it's extraordinarily rare to have months and months later significant side effects from a vaccine.
Dr. Suzanne DeBlecki-Lewis is the principal investigator for the Moderna trial at the University of Miami. They started last July, administering shots to a highly diverse group of hundreds of patients, diverse in gender, race, and ethnicity, but also in age and comorbidities. Of that group, none experienced any serious side effects. They're now in the trial phase where they're giving vaccines to the people who got placebos. She explained how vaccines were able to get authorized for emergency use quickly.
You know, I think it's that balance between needing to stop the pandemic spread and all of the resulting really deaths that were happening with waiting a long time to see look for side effects that were very unlikely to occur.
Vaccine makers have nearly a year of data in trials and now larger numbers from use in the general population. That's enough to soon apply for permanent use authorization. Now, the doctor says the government's vaccine adverse events database is also large enough now that they would have picked up on anything serious. There's new important positive data showing vaccines are not only preventing deaths and serious illness, but slowing transmission.
And the answer is it decreases even getting the virus at all by about 90% in a study that was done with healthcare workers and first responders, which is really important and critical information because it tells us that, you know, it's even more helpful.
Just this week, the National Institutes of Health said it's enrolling thousands of adults in studies to see why there were allergic reactions to Pfizer and Moderna vaccines. Most of the rare, severe allergic reactions happen in people with a history of allergies. All right, the newsfeed starts with the fact that many people try to take advantage of this pandemic for money. Border Patrol says about 20 million counterfeit protective masks were seized in 2021. On top of that, more than 65,000 fake respirators were also found at Chicago's O'Hare Airport in March. Amazon's taking a bit of a unique approach when it comes to policing its users on its streaming platform, Twitch. The site can now ban users for behavior they do offline. If a third-party investigator determines a user took part in, for example, criminal activity, they could be banned from the site. CO2 levels are breaking the kinds of records you really hope do not get broken. They're now at their highest point in the last 3.6 million years. That's according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The barrier was broken even though the pandemic led to less emissions. Experts believe had it not been for the pandemic, 2020 would have been a record year. All right, last up in our lineup today, there is some overlapping symptoms when it comes to spring allergies and COVID-19. The differences and how wearing a mask can help. Spring is in the air, and so is pollen. Research has shown the allergen can make respiratory illnesses worse, and COVID is no exception.
Pollen actually causes inflammation in your airways if you're allergic. So you can get, stuffy nose, coughing, wheezing, even asthma symptoms from it, similarly to what you get with respiratory viruses. And then the irony is if you suffer from allergies, you're more likely to catch a respiratory virus or vice versa because, your airways are already inflamed from one thing, such as pollen.
Dr. Purvi Parikh says this is something wearing a mask can actually help with. Just in the same way, it keeps you from breathing in virus particles. Masks can also stop pollen particles from getting in your airways. It's also important to pay attention to the symptoms that you're experiencing if you have a pollen allergy.
Itching is more unique to allergies, itchy eyes, itchy ears, throat, skin. And then the other thing that's more unique to COVID actually is fever. So usually with allergies, you don't get a temperature over 100.4 or higher, which is our threshold for fevers. But with viruses and COVID, you do.
Now, Dr. Parikh says loss of taste and smell and muscle aches are also unique to COVID. But spring allergies and COVID do have some overlapping symptoms, things like a stuffy nose and dry cough. So if you're unsure, it's best to get tested. The doctor also stresses that if you are having any breathing problems, seek medical help. Allergies can cause this, and if you have COVID, it can make it worse. When members of the military deploy overseas, there is so much to prepare for, including where their pets will live while they're gone. Tomorrow, how one group is helping military members across the country find temporary homes for their pets.
We have sunshine across portions of central Indiana, but we still need to track some departing downpours. Find out why Saturday sticks out in the weekend forecast, and the overall pattern is cooler. We'll define cooler coming up. The news starts now.